little over a year ago, one of my viewers pointed out this thing, and shortly thereafter, GBGuns Depot readers and then later YouTube viewers got to learn about the Ermox X-Fire. Very interesting, not Glock clone, but compatible with some Glock parts, all metal gun. It was quite affordable and really nice on the range, although there were a couple spots that I thought it could have some improvements. That led to some great conversations with Ermox about the future of the gun. Went over and visited them at IWA Classics in 2024, the big show in Nuremberg, Germany. And then now we have the XF Pro brought to us by Fusion Firearms. If you missed the XP Pro, which was another of Ermox's designs, Fusion Firearms has teamed up with Ermox. They are the importer, U.S. handler, and as far as all warranty and things like that, it's happening through Fusion Firearms. They also have had some input on the gun itself. And it's nice to see in the XF Pro that some of the things that I pointed out to Ermox, it seems Fusion did as well, because now we've got a new gun. Tabletop review on Field Strip coming up next on Inside our protective box, we've got the plastic case. Cases remain the same, though of course now some new labeling and branding showing the teamwork between Fusion Firearms and Ermox. If you're not familiar with Fusion Firearms, they had previously never been on this channel before. I had reached out to them a couple times and it never went anywhere, and part of that's because they previously didn't have production line guns. They were a 1911 custom shop. And so, and I understand with them, there have been very few totally custom shops that I've done reviews of, because the problem is, well, what I end up reviewing is my custom choice, which may not match what the general public wants. And if they throw everything on the gun, then it ends up looking kind of weird. And it's amazing how people will judge something at first sight on a video and not listen to the fact that certain features are custom options and that there are other options out there. So I don't blame Fusion at all for that. Now they've got the Ermox, and this is a production gun, meaning you can get one just like this. Inside the box, we've got our manual, the pistol, optics plates, magazines, cleaning kit, and up top, some calmer grips in case you want to stick with those rather than the camo pattern, which I rather like. The original came with red and black. It came black equipped. I swapped to the red to make it stand out because I thought the gun was worth standing out a bit. As always, we're going to go through the manual briefly. That's to show what the owner or the manufacturer wants you to know about and understand about the gun. This is also for the overlords at YouTube, for when they strike me down for field stripping the gun, I can show them that that's all in the manual and I'm doing end user level basic safety stuff. Speaking of safety things, something that a lot of folks on the internet, I don't know, I've reviewed close to 500 handguns, folks. I'm pretty familiar with handgun designs and shapes and what works and what doesn't. And I said repeatedly, this is not a Glock clone, but the rest of the internet wanted to call it that because it takes Glock magazines and a Glock barrel. Somehow that still led to people calling it a Glock clone and then attempting to swap parts and then failing miserably. So in this manual put out by Fusion Firearms, number 10 right there. Thank you, Fusion, for settling this in black and white. The XF Pro is not a 100% Glock compatible pistol. The barrel, dual recoil spring, sights, and magazines are 100% Glock compatible. That's it. The rest of the gun is different. So think of this as something that is easy to accessorize and feed, but not a Glock. And that's a good thing because this gun was produced in 2025 and the Glock is from the 90s. There's our specs. You can pause and squint or check the pinned comment over at my website. I will have the full specs, etc., as well as what these cost and where to find one. So looking through our manual, we've got nice full color images enhanced by arrows, which is a good thing. One thing I did not see in here, but I always get asked about, is ammunition restrictions. There's nothing in here about plus P or not, so I'm going to take that to mean that this is probably built for CIP spec, since it's a Turkish gun. If it's built to CIP spec, that means including NATO loads, which are 10% over SAMI pressure, which is exactly the same pressure difference as 9mm plus P. That said, this is a 4-inch barrel gun. Plus P ammunition is meant to compensate for a substandard barrel length. 9mm ammunition in the US is loaded for a 4-inch barrel, so there's no need for Plus P ammunition in this. When we get to the range, I will run some Plus P through it, most likely, but a steady diet is not necessary and not recommended. That's coming from me. As far as what the manual says, I don't see anything in there. Alright, let's get this out of the way. I will show you these optics plates, and there is a list of the optics that fit these plates. These are steel plates, and they are beefy. I mean, we were joking at the gun shop about if I took all the optics plates that I had, we could actually play Pogs. If anyone remembers playing Pogs when they were kids, go ahead and smash that like button. Ooh, I just did a gun tuber thing. But seriously, these are beefy metal plates, and what I like about that is you can see that the index pins are good and strong, not going to be snapping off on you anytime soon. As always with optics, the biggest risk when the plates work is screws coming loose or screws shearing, since screws were not designed for facing shear forces. If you don't know about that, check out some mechanical engineering. The cleaning kit, I'll include details of that in the article. It's pretty inclusive, awesome setup. These magazines are unlabeled on the bottom, but they do have the steel liner in them. I will run those in the shooting impressions video, as well as a plethora of aftermarket Glock magazines, just to see how they run, including the new Metgar. I have one of those all steel mags. I'm really curious to give that a try. Let's get this stuff out of the way and take a look at the gun. You might be wondering, first off, what's the difference between this and the X-Fire? For those of you lucky enough to have grabbed one of the early X-Fires, we'll cover that real quick. If you hadn't and you're wondering what all is new, I'm still going to cover it. Here we go. Right off the bat, of course, you can see there's a difference in slide design. There's also some changes to the frame. We have a textured memory pad on the right side of the frame, and on the left side of the frame we now have a little thumb rest speed ledge type thing, which I'm looking forward to trying. I have not weighed yet, but I will later. The difference in slide weight with these holes cut through it, and you can see it's a rather thick slide, versus the lightning cuts that were on the original. I know people love to mock those, but really it does make a difference in shooting. The less reciprocating mass you have flying back and forth, i.e. the lighter the slide, generally the less recoil you feel, because you have less weight stopping at the end of its cycle. You can see the ledge change there. The textures remain the same. One thing that I can't quite identify, but I swear they changed it, was on the original, I felt some edges back here when I get my hand in deep that were just maybe a wee sharper than they needed to be. And I remember shooting it first time, and this one, I mean, you can now see this edge is definitely different than the butted edge. Maybe that's what did it, but this feels so much nicer in the hand. I'm looking forward to shooting this. I don't think I'm going to have that same problem there. That combined with an actual ledge to put the thumb on that doesn't stick out too terribly wide. As far as holster compatibility, you're going to have to check with Fusion Firearms, or just check with your holsters. If you're a Kydex guy, time to bust out the heat gun and maybe make a little room, but it's not terribly wider than the rest of the gun, so we'll find out about that later. Also, a big change was in the trigger. We'll get to that when we go to trigger talk, but the trigger feels significantly different in a better way on the new XF Pro. You can also see we went to blacked out rear and a white dot front versus fiber optic rear and front on the original. We've retained the striker window. Everything else is similar, but the ergonomics and the style are slightly different. It is coming at a slightly higher price now. That's what you missed out on for not being an early adopter, but I do believe from just handling it off camera ahead of time that this is a significantly improved design that is probably going to be more fun on the range. Alright, on to fit, finish, and features. We've already shown clear, giving you a quick breakdown of differences between the gun, already shown clear as well. Starting up front, as always, we have a little bit of play side to side. This is a long rail gun. The rails take up most of the frame, as you'll see once we field strip it. That little bit of play is a good thing. That helps lock in reliability. Where you don't want play is your barrel lockup, which is nice and tight. I also noticed these serrations here, if I angle, maybe you can see them, are forward facing. For those that need to do the over the top racking bit, that should help grab on. These serrations here, pretty decent. I would probably just pinch for the windows since I've got fleshy fingers. We've got 3 rail spots underneath. We have a textured and slightly curved with a bump trigger guard there for those that like to do the forward finger European style bit. Again, that thumb rest is a great spot, should be good, and you know, it might also help me keep my thumb clear of the slide lock release lever, which might have been a problem I had with this gun originally. I wear double XL gloves. If you don't, then you probably don't have to worry about that as much, but you can see I hit about mid joint there. Magazine release, it's got some good pressure to it and drops things well. One of the things that I appreciated about the original, and I don't know why others can't get this, is lateral serrations on the front strap. The gun is trying to pivot in your hand. It's trying to do this during recoil, not swim side to side. If you're going to put serrations on a front strap, they should be lateral, not vertical. The vertical ones only help you for the gun swimming in your hand, not against recoil. You might notice we've got a bit of a tail here. It's not at the mainspring housing, but the back of the frame extends to a bit, and then it's kind of enclosed by the grip panels here, which makes for a nice backward funnel to get the mags in while still leaving you room to be able to grip and strip if you're not familiar with the proper way to clear a Type 3 malfunction. If you aren't, don't worry, I have a video on that. But what I also noticed here is we've got enough space here that I'm not going to get the Glock 19 pinch, which is what always happened to me on Glock 19 and many guns of that size, is my fingers just end up with my pinky right there and I get pinched. But that space allows for it to not become a condemning pinch. Texturing on the grip panels is not aggressive, but that's okay. Really, your grip is coming from the front and rear of the pistol, not the sides. On the back, once again, we've got those horizontal serrations as they should be. I already pointed out the slight extension to the beaver tail, that just a bit of roundedness to help keep from those edges biting into the hand as I experienced on the original. Slide to frame fit is good and tight in the back. You can see we've got a striker indicator and that this is a partially cocked striker system. Trigger safety works. As I pull this, you can see the striker extends for releasing. Since we're here, let's do some trigger talk. Now, one of the things that I commented on, and several others who bought and tried the original, was the trigger was a bit heavy. It wasn't impossible. It was definitely appropriate for carry, but it was heavy enough to maybe interfere with shooters who are developing in their skills and need something a little bit lighter. This trigger is indeed lighter and does not have necessarily a defined wall. It's kind of there, but this is a pull-through style trigger that is nice and predictable towards the end. However, the reset still strong enough to feel it and takes you right in front of where the actual wall is. So that means your first shot is going to be pull through, and then if you are a trigger rider like I am, you can just bounce off of the reset thereafter. If not, as you saw, releasing from the reset all the way out doesn't add a whole lot of travel. It's a pretty decent trigger. It's not a crisp and sharp 1911-esque trigger, but for a striker trigger it's pretty good, and I bet it won't prevent me from having a good time on the range. Black dot rear and white dot front sight. Of course, optics ready, and the plates for a wide variety of optics. If you're curious about which all they fit, check the pinned comment. Again, in my full review article, I'll list all those out for you. Coming on the right side of the gun, you can see we don't have a right side controls. We do have that memory pad textured spot there. It's not going to provide a lot of traction for left-handed shooters, but I bet you guys are used to that. I, by the way, am a left-handed and left-eye dominant. However, you see me shoot right-eye right-handed because that's the way most guns come. I argue that if I was able to teach myself that, you are too. Just putting that challenge out there. Next, we'll field strip the XF Pro and take a look inside the gun. To field strip the XF Pro, we're going to first check for clear. We're going to release our striker. We've got these takedown screws on both sides. Pull those down and bring the slide back a hair, and it comes off the front like a Glock. But you see we've got those nice long rails there up front and long rails in the back. And you Glockophiles, taking a look inside, you'll see some familiarities in that this is indeed a striker-fired gun, and most striker-fired guns are built roughly the same, but you can see that this is a bit different. I like this big, appears to be a monoblock of steel that's inserted in there for the locking lug and all of that interaction. And then when we take a look at the trigger mechanism itself, we can see it's similar but also different. Big beefy ejector, just like the original, built like a tank. Coming up top to our slide, we've got our dual recoil spring, which is nice. I prefer dual spring or 3-spring if you can get a DPM system. Those tend to make guns easier to rack and yet softer shooting because the resistance stacks up as the slide moves rearward. We're going to unlock our barrel like any Browning action, drop it down, bring it forward out, and then back out a little bit. And then we can take a look inside our slide. Very, very clean construction, very nicely made. Big old honking safety plunger in there. Thing's almost the size of a dime, but quite ramped. Otherwise, very clean, big piece of steel. Now we'll do, let me wipe off some of this grease and we'll check for chamber fitment. And again, if you guys are offended by these colors, if you're one of those colorists, don't worry, they have other options available. I kind of like this, let's call it muddy bronze, if you will. You can see we have a polished feed ramp and even a little bit of chamfering around the mouth. The camera cooperates there. Got a round of Liberty Ammunition Civil Defense. Use this stuff because it's nickel plated, so it's corrosion resistant. It's around to handle a lot. It also helps reduce friction. So we drop this in, we're going to listen for a plunk. Drop it in. There we go. Ooh, did not go in. There we go. That might be just from a little bit of oil still inside. Yep. I want to check to see if the round can rotate freely, and it can. And then looking to see how supported this chamber is, and it appears to be a fully supported chamber. That's another edge up over the Glock design, which is nice. If you're new to firearms, the reason why a fully supported chamber is important is should you have a case rupture, that is the shell itself breaks open during firing, a fully supported chamber helps keep all the pressure going out the end of the barrel, whereas a not fully supported chamber, such as older Glocks and some other models of guns, you have a chance for that rupture to then send some of that 35,000 psi back into your hand, which is something I try to avoid. With that out of the way, I'll reassemble this by simply inversing the reassembly process. It's practically inverted. I'm doing this with a camera about 2 feet in front of me. I have to reach forward from the camera and look through the camera to do this, so it's rather a lot more awkward than you'd think. Anyways, tell you about what you'll see in the range video. You will see my absolute first shots through this gun. That's right, no warm-up shots, no practice, no break-in, and definitely no highlight reels on this channel. We keep it real. Do full magazine plus one, see how the gun runs fully stuffed. And since this is a Glock magazine compatible gun, we'll do the multi-mag test. I'll bring out, I don't know, 5 or 8 or 10 different aftermarket Glock pattern magazines. We'll see how they each run. Sample size of 1, but it gives us a general idea. We'll take it over to the What's for Dinner table to see what the gun eats, putting 10 additional loads through the gun on paper, so you can see if there's any notable point of impact shifts or anything like that, and if the gun will eat them. Then over to the spinner for sights and trigger control. With this trigger having a less than predictable, or less, I don't know, I'm going to say my judgment till I shoot it. But I'll do that. Then practical accuracy is 5 shots from 7 yards on a 1-inch square before I give you my concluding thoughts. As always, full specs and the deep dive review as well as close-up photos and things like that will all be over on my website. YouTube does not permit me to mention that website, but it starts with GBGuns. If you search that on YouTube's parent company, Google, you'll find the site. Thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for 10 years of support, and we'll see you on the range.